Hi, I'm Pablo, and I'm here to have a conversation with my teacher, Pepper Luis. We have known each other, I believe, from around 12 years already, maybe 13 years. But this is the first time we're actually going to have a little fun talking about things and just life in general. And we have set up each other with questions that then the other one doesn't know. So we're not sure what we're going to talk about exactly. It's going to be a little bit of a surprise. And she has been just a wonderful teacher for me my whole life. And right now I feel very happy to be able to have this conversation with her. So here she is, Pepper Luis.
Hi, I'm Pepper. And Pablo and I, as he just told you, are great friends. Yes, it's true, I'm his teacher. It's probably more appropriate to say that I'm his mentor at this point. I think I have taught him just about everything that I can teach him, but I'm happy to be a sounding board. We're a sounding board for each other. We probably talk to each other as friends about once a week or every 2 weeks. And if it goes longer than that, we really start to miss each other. So we talk to each other when things get confusing, when we hit some of those crossroads that we're just not sure about. One of those moments that you say, hey, what just happened there? I think I missed something. And when we're looking for clarity on a next step, or especially these days when the world seems a little bit extra crazy, we talk to each other and try and become balanced with each other so that we can each share in our own way. So it's true, we've known each other for that long, and now we have this really great, interesting relationship. So we did decide to have some fun today and include you along with that. So we didn't set this up exactly as a game, but we said, well, let's play interview. I'll interview you and you interview me, and we won't tell each other what the questions are, and we won't make it like a formal thing. We'll just have some fun. So the questions that I wrote, I didn't give him any hints, but I did tell him a few minutes ago that I wrote one really big, huge question and a couple of fun ones, and just to see how this would go. But I do want to say I wrote questions that I would ask someone else too. So not just Pablo. So as I'm asking him these questions, I want you to ask yourself these same questions. And if you have answers that you want to share them with us as well. Share them with Pablo on his pages, and share them with me on mine, on Facebook, on my website, anywhere else. And we'll give you that information at the end of the video as well. So that's a good start for now. So you go. I'll take your question first.
So I go with the first question. That's the idea.
Okay. Right.
Okay. So the first question that came to me, because I was trying to think about something that we haven't talked about. We usually talk a lot, so,
I know, yeah.
so it's kind of hard to find new things. But in a way, one of the things that I've always been curious about is how did you feel? Because I know that sometimes you tend to be a little shy, especially when you are not on camera or teaching. In the rest of your life, you're very like an introvert, like a very shy person. So how did you feel? How did you manage to actually stand up in front of sometimes thousands of people, talking about things or channeling sometimes? And I know I've seen you doing that many times, but I don't know how you managed that or how you felt about it.
That's an interesting question. So yeah, I am kind of an introvert, a little shy. You know, in my personal life, I do better around smaller groups of people. And when it's if I go to a party, I'm the one in the kitchen, you know, refilling all the drinks or doing anything like that because it gives me something to do. But when I do the public seminars and things, it's true. I just get used to people. And the truth is that I love people. I love people. I love sharing what I do. And I think that helps me overcome most of it. But ever since the beginning and up until now, I am kind of a stage fright person. So before a seminar will start, I'll go walk around the room myself a few times and and say, okay, this is where I am, this is the room that I'm in, and I get used to the environment. And the very first time that I started doing this public work, I was hiding in the bathroom. I was hiding in the women's bathroom of this community college, thinking, how do I get out of here without anyone noticing? And then it was on a stage, and they had one of those big podiums in front of me. And I'm about 5 feet tall. And so the podium was, up to like here. So I thought, well, this isn't going to work, but I felt like I needed something to stand behind. So they got me a case, like a case of books, 1 or 2 cases of books. And so I was standing on top of 1 or 2 cases of books with this podium in front of me. And then after a few minutes of doing that, I thought, well, this feels ridiculous. This is not who I am. I don't stand behind a podium, and I want to be with people. So I got off of this podium, and I heard this voice inside of me, which we could say is channeling, is Gaia, is your muse, whatever. There was this power inside of me that pushed the podium aside and said, I don't need to stand behind anything or anyone to be with these people. And all of a sudden I was there, and I was okay. And, all the butterflies in my stomach and the feeling like I was going to throw up, or, everything just subsided. Because until then, I knew exactly where all the exit signs were. And I thought, if this goes badly, I'm out that door and no one will ever see me again. That's it. And so, and all these years later now, but still, when it's time, for a little while, and before it's time for a seminar, people that know me well, they sort of, they give me a little bit of distance. They give me a little bit of space. I kind of look like I'm a little upset, but I'm a little scared. And then I get over it. So that's it. I just get over it because of the love of doing it. But the person that I am is still shy, introvert.
I believe I've never heard that story before. All the time you talked.
One of the oldest, yeah. So it was at a little community college in Reno, Nevada, that someone had organized for me very early on, maybe in 1987, 89, yeah, maybe 89 or 90. So about then, one of those first seminars that I did.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And I don't know, maybe you feel the same way in front. Sometimes larger audiences are easier because you feel the energy of the audience and you just become one with the experience. Sometimes it's easier to do that than it is in a very small group of people. And one of the things that's always been hard for me is I don't really like stages. So I like to be on the same level with everyone. I don't really think that what I do somehow needs to be elevated in that way. So stages have always been a little uncomfortable. But I realize that just because of the size of audiences and my stature and everything, if we don't have stages, nobody would see me. So I guess it's good in that way.
Well, when you describe that, what?
Video is good. Video is great for an introvert, right?
When you describe the kind of person you are at parties, I felt really, really like familiarity in that, because I'm usually the one also like trying to pour the drinks, getting the glasses, or doing whatever stuff in the kitchen, so I don't mingle too much with people over there.
Exactly. Refill the potato chips, the drinks. Oh, wash the dishes. We're going to need more of those. I'll cut the cake, anything that involves putting me to work rather than having to, engage in, small conversation or something is harder for me.
Yeah, for me too. It's really difficult, like small talk and all that. I'm a mess doing that. I'm usually too direct when I get to something, or going too deep too quickly.
Yeah. All right. Is it my turn?
Your turn.
All right, let me see. Okay, so right after we came up with the idea to do this video and we hung up, and I thought to myself, oh gosh, what am I going to ask too? We know each other so well. So I clicked off of our conversation, and the first email that I opened, this is really funny. I'm always honest, so I'll just be honest about it. It was from Weight Watchers. It was from Weight Watchers, and it was one of their ads, and it said exactly the question that I'm going to ask you. It said, "What is your why?" It had it in quotation marks. What is
Mm.
your why for doing something? So in this case, it was Weight Watchers, right? So what is your why for really losing weight? You know, one size, a wedding, you know, whatever it is. So in terms of what you do in your world, what is your why?
That's a good question. Uh, I kind of try to do what I do because I feel there is a need, like a bigger need, pushing and pressing on me to do it, and it just doesn't go away if I don't do it. So, for example, if I'm gonna go and accept or maybe just try to make something happen somewhere to teach a class or something like that, I do it because there's something just pushing me there, trying to get me to that place in a way that if I don't do it, it just stays there, like nagging me to go out there and do it. It's like you need to teach, you need to go there, you need to be there. And even at sometimes that I start to relax myself, something happens that makes me wake up. Maybe some sort of I don't know. An expense that I didn't have in my accounting, like something new that I need to spend a lot of money, like an emergency that makes me run out of money and say, well, you need to go and teach again.
Yeah.
Or something that if I relax and I say, well, I'm not going to teach for a while, I'm going to just relax for a month or whatever, then someone calls me and tells me, why don't you come here and teach here? And it's a really nice place or something that I really feel like I need to be doing. So it's like a push from somewhere that I don't really know how to describe. I believe it is spirit or the universe just pushing around and showing me the places where I need to be. And then the way I do it, it's because I feel the need for a deeper way to take a look at life from a deeper perspective that we're usually looking at right now. It's it's kind of funny actually because the more I try to become I usually tell my students and everyone that I'm a Capricorn, so I'm like really fixed on material stuff and doing things and making things work. So the more I try to fix myself into something that works, like physically, and I say I'm not gonna go too much into channeling, I'm not gonna go too much into spirituality these days, I'm gonna try to work something physical. I don't know, maybe switch a tire of a car or maybe just wash the dishes or whatever. The more I go there, the more it pushes me to go deeper, and it's like something opens in my mind that starts a stream of ideas and I don't know, knowledge or wisdom that starts pouring there, and it's pushing me to just go publish that, go. And it doesn't go away until I write it down on Facebook, maybe with a phrase or something. And then when I do it, it's like it relaxes, and then I can do the other stuff. But it's something that just comes up there. And I have a deep belief that if we take a look at humanity in a way from a deeper part, if we recognize who we really are on the inside, we are we don't mess around too much with other stuff like with nature or with consumerism, or we just trying to be greedy about stuff and collecting things just for the sake of collecting them. The more we look at each other, the more I see myself inside, the more I feel that need for consumerism. Even though it comes once in a while, it's like I need a new stuff. I need something new. I need to buy something new. But then I can quickly recognize it that it's just the personality or the ego trying to get a hold to something instead of going deeper, because it's just a way for me to go deeper inside. So it's like it's like I'm on the shore of the beach, and then the wave comes, and when it's coming back to the ocean, it taxed me to go deeper. So I tried to grab anything to buy or maybe sometimes even it is a book or a seminar or whatever I see, to just grab and hold on to that, like if it was a dog, so it doesn't bring me back with the current into the ocean. But then when I just let go and let myself go into the ocean, something deeper opens up, and then when I come back, because the tide always brings me back to the physical again. After going in there, I feel there is some sort of peace, and then I see that what I was trying to grab onto, not to go into the ocean, I don't need it anymore. So it's not there anymore. Or if it or if it is there, I don't need to grab to it to get a hold onto it. So I believe that's the why. I don't know if I answered the
So,
question.
so your why is that you feel compelled. You feel
Yeah.
compelled to do this, and so it's not a yes or a no. It's just the compelling motion that propels you to do this. That you have to follow it, and that's beautiful. I just want to say to also to who's ever watching or listening to us that the why could be anything. I mean, our why could and easily is I need to support my family, and this is the
Right.
best way I can do this. So the answers that we come up with are not always these grand, beautiful, visionary, this is my purpose in life kind of answers. They can be very, very basic and insistent at the same time. I think for myself as well, that I wanted to not exactly prove to the world, but maybe to my own family, maybe to my parents, that these things are important. And that, coming from my generation as well, I could say that I didn't need to marry a doctor or a lawyer, that I could take care of myself in my life, and that I could take care of myself by doing something that I also cared about or could also return to the earth. So there was a little bit of that, let me prove it to you kind of thing, but not that much. But I think we all have a little bit of that in us as well, maybe.
Yeah, and that's what I said in the middle, that sometimes it is about money. It's like finances are all right, and then an emergency comes up,
Mhm,
and I have to move and sustain my family.
mhm.
So it's once in a while, it's like the universe reminds me that you need to
Yeah,
do this because of this reason too. It's like you need to work
yeah,
or
we need to
something.
work. Exactly, it's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, good.
Okay. So my turn.
Okay.
Um, One of the things I usually wonder about, but at the same time, it's something that some people asks me sometimes, is what is it like the life of someone that's teaching uh, spiritual stuff or has like this sort of role in front of other people of being a teacher or a mentor.
Mhm.
So the question is, how would you describe your daily life, how you do like your routine, your normal routine.
Well,
Is it too different from the
I
rest of
have
the people?
I have a very, very, I think, normal life. For many years ago, when I started this work, I was a single mom, and my boys were young. And in order for me to do this work, either to write articles or to teach classes, which I taught in my home living room in the beginning, I got the kids home and got them to do their homework, and those would be the days that I would order a pizza and tell them that they could eat the pizza in their room really quietly, and they had to make sure that the dogs stayed quiet as well. And quite honestly, if I had people over to teach a class in my living room, I would be cleaning my house that day. I would be, cleaning the toilets from what little boys can do to toilets. And so I mean, it doesn't get more normal than that. As the years went on, and they are now grown and gone, and I've traveled around the world, but when I'm here and at home, I cook. I like to cook, and I like to garden. So I like to grow food. I like to grow vegetables, because it's important for me to know that food does not come from the supermarket. It comes from the earth. And in some ways, I feel like I need to feed myself and others from what the earth gives us. So in that way, the things I do, I get, grimy and dirty, and, put boots in the ground and shovels. And so I look very much like that when I'm at home. And the other side of that, of being a teacher at the same time, is that I am always trying to look at things with a bigger heart and a bigger mind. And I'm hard on myself in that way. So, if I hear myself be judgmental or critical of someone else, I almost instantly, whatever they call that, instant karma, I look at myself and say, wait a minute, didn't you just do something really similar to that last week? Wouldn't you like someone to let you off the hook for whatever it is, for not calling them back, or for saying no at the last minute, or things like that? And so I try very hard to walk my talk, to not ask other people to consider truths, or to do things that are more difficult than something that I could take on. And so in that way, I do try to walk my talk as a teacher. So in some ways, I'm the most ordinary person you can imagine, and at the same time, I do walk my talk, and I'm also very honest about what I don't do well yet. I don't like to be put on a pedestal. I don't like for people to think that I'm anything more than what they are, or what they are capable of. And maybe that's it. I don't think most people that see me on my daily basis even know who I am, or what I do, or the fact that I just heard their thoughts as they walked through the frozen food aisle at the supermarket, and that I heard their thoughts or concerns as they walked past me. So it's a little different being, who and how I am, and that those things happen, and that they're normal to me. There are days that I feel so sensitive that I don't go shopping or to do errands. It's just not a good idea for me to drive on all days. And some days are very, very sensitive, and I try and take a little bit better care on those days. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does, and it's actually kind of enlightening in the way that there is this sort of ideal of how the teacher should be, or how the teacher should lead the life, or how it must sustain himself or herself, like almost above the ground, floating around, and we need to do chores just like anyone else,
Just like anything else. Yeah, there are things that I put more. I take more careful idea of boundaries. I make sure that I have a certain amount of silence in my days. It's really important to me to have a certain amount of quiet in my days. And so if I'm out and about doing things, there has to be a balance that I really need the quiet. So I sometimes need to close a door. I sometimes need to just say, these 2 hours, I just nothing to say. I like to be quiet, not always talking. When I do sessions for people, I like to just give myself fully to that. So I make sure that if possible, there isn't anyone even near my office or home or anything else. So I can completely be in that. So there are some differences of doing, this kind of work than something else, as you know, and a few safeguards are a good idea, and boundaries are a necessity.
Yeah, I can completely understand. Some the days I do sessions or I do channelings, I'm especially like sensitive to anything that goes, or like very open wide, and then
Yeah, it is. You have less, the layers, those layers that separate us from other things and other people, they need to be very, very thin, thin or non-existent. And because of that, when I'm done, like if I'm done doing a session, I can go be around other people, but I don't like to be touched right away. I don't want someone to just grab me or hug me or anything, because all of those layers are just gone in that moment. And it takes a while for me to take on those regular human characteristics that we know separate us from other people.
Yeah, so something like this happens to me after class for a while. I feel for me after the class feels like I have been sucked into a black hole for a while and then spit back up, and I have this feeling like the whole Monday morning, if the class was on the weekend, like
Yeah.
nobody comes near me, nobody touch me, even at night. It's like,
Hmm.
go away, don't stay close to me,
Yeah.
and just like it's almost like a reincorporation
Yeah.
of the body slowly. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Same thing for me. It feels like inside out, all of my organs, everything looks like it's going to just spill out all over the place. And then, okay, tuck it all back inside again and be this other thing. And sometimes, when I see the crazy sci-fi, things, that images and things that they do with special effects on the movies and everything, I'm like, oh, look, that's me. Oh, look, it's all back. It's kind of funny. You really have to have a good sense of humor as well,
Yeah.
because spirit has a good sense of humor, and all those things also remove the barriers. A good, healthy sense of humor makes the barriers very, very thin. When we start to think, oh, this is really important. This is really important work. I have to really apply myself, and all those things. The skin gets thicker, but it doesn't necessarily make things better for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the sense of humor of the universe is almost like a little bit about like a practical joke and black comedy usually, like
Yeah.
on the timeline. At least for me, it has built that way usually.
Yes, yeah. It does feel that way sometimes, and it's very hard to describe because it's not like spirit or the universe is laughing at us or with us the way we say, but there's this incredible innocent humor. This looks like a big deal, but you're going to come through it fine. And there's this bigness around it that it doesn't make you feel small, but it makes your problems and concerns feel smaller because you feel this bigness of cushioning around you and this eternity of time. And it doesn't feel like this time crunch, oh, I better work this out or else. And so things start to loosen themselves up from how tight we have made them, really.
Exactly.
All right. You want your big question
Your
here?
turn. Oh, this is the big question.
Or do you want a medium question?
Whatever you feel like.
Let's see. All right, I'm going to save the big one for, okay, the next one's the big one. So there you go.
Uh-huh.
So this one is, so I know that over the many years that I've been working, how I feel about the world, how I feel about life, how I feel about spirituality has shifted and changed, and sometimes even done an about course about faith. So in your work, in how your life has gone, how would you say that either your beliefs or your focus, your interest, how has that changed or evolved over time?
Oh, that's quite a question. I believe they have evolved quite a lot. From being like a very, I'm still a little bit stubborn, but from being very stubborn on
No,
how
really?
on how things should be done the whole time, and having like a very judgmental and righteous kind of feelings and thoughts on how the world should be and how I had the answer for all that. It's been like transforming into understanding that everyone has a different answer and how everyone can change at their own pace and how everyone is living a different situation. I I also since I was a little kid, and I don't know if it was the upbringing or the things that happened in high school or in school while I was there. I was always very reluctant on getting close to people and being afraid of them hurting me the whole time. So I always was on the defensive side of everything and anything. Anything that came up, I was having second thoughts that it might hurt me or he or she might hurt me the whole time. I was on that sense. So I had this sort of value of thinking that people are bad the whole time, and so that makes it very difficult to trust people in the short term or in the long run and build relationships on the long run too. So it's like I had to have a lot of things and events happening or demonstrations from the other people, from the other person, that he or she was trustworthy before I opened myself up. So I looked like a rock for everyone. And one of the things that has happened during the time I've been like learning this and talking with you and going through all this spiritual change with you, for me, it has been that I have been able to see that everyone is doing the best they can from their own consciousness level, from their own point of view, from their own struggles and everything that is happening with them. So it has made me a little bit more. I can trust people easier right now, and I don't see the bad side so quickly. So that helps me a lot because I don't try to fix them so quickly. Because one of the things that I believed before was that I had the fix for those people that I can trust. You know, I can change them and make them trustworthy. And I didn't see that before as something that I could change in myself. And right now I understand it the other way. And I understand that they are doing the best that they can. Even if someone does something that maybe some people think that it is bad or something that is ugly or whatever judgment you can put into that, I feel pretty quickly that that is just their struggle and they are doing it in the best way they can, even if I need to vent about it for a while. But then I see that it's just their own path they're going through, and that they are on their own learning process and doing the best that they can. They are not doing that because they are evil, but because that's the best they can do right now. And maybe if they are coming close to me, it's because they have something to learn me. But probably I don't have any way to teach anything to them. Just try to be myself, stay in the same way of being, like sustaining this idea inside myself that everyone is trustworthy enough and good on the inside, and then maybe they'll notice that it is possible to do it and to change a little bit and to switch. But I think that's the biggest value that has changed me in this whole time, that I can allow myself to be more vulnerable to everyone, and it's something that is completely needed to what I do right now and what you did. So it was like I feel it was like you either do it or you cannot do what you're supposed to do. So and I try to remind myself usually of that whenever I feel like there's someone talking something, or I read a tweet or a Facebook page or whatever that makes no sense, or I see that how can this government do that, or whatever comes into my mind. It's like, well, they are doing that from their best place. They're not trying to be evil. They're not trying to manipulate anyone. They're just doing that from their best place. They have the best interest they can actually sustain in their lives and hold in their lives. And I think, well, let's hope someone can get close to them and talk a little sense into their minds, maybe. But that's it, you know.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
So I think,
tolerance. Okay. So you've mentioned tolerance, and you
yeah,
mentioned trust, and you mentioned vulnerability, and all of those things are are great, and that people really are doing the best they can. I believe that too. I had an old friend years ago, and her answer to everything, or after we had talked everything out, she would say something like, "Honey, if they could, they would." And that was her way of saying that they're doing the best they could.
yeah,
If they could do better, they would do better. So the fact that they're not, this is it for now or something. And this is someone who was older than I was, and it's that voice of experience that can say things like that. We don't always get to that place right away that
yeah.
that has
And,
that.
and for me, it has been hard. It's like I need to be constantly reminded of that in my mind. And right now, it's a switch that comes up quickly when I get into the judgmental sort of way. But before, it was something that I had to be really aware. Like, I don't know, probably was like 2 or 3 years that I had to be really aware every day of where I was getting into,
Mhm.
on my mind, or maybe in some arguments with other people because of
Yeah.
trying just to be stay close and stay on that childish frame of mind that I learned from so little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, so my turn.
Mhm.
um, I know, you just mentioned that on your last answer, that sometimes when someone comes by the supermarket, it's like you can get into their thoughts. And I know you usually have visions of things. So have you ever had a vision that feels like a burden inside when you have it, in a way that I don't know, it brings some struggle into your life, or be it something personal or collective? It the question goes more into if it feels like, why did I have this vision? Like some
Yeah.
sort of that sort of feeling. Have you ever had that?
Yeah, I have, and I still, I really still believe that we, in general, whether we're, parents or whoever we are in life, that we are not given more than we can handle, or that whatever we're given is because we need to learn that in some ways. But a few, the biggest thing that happened in that way is that many years ago, I could, because I went through this really big earthquake experience in 1994 in Los Angeles, as a lot of people know, and how much that changed my life, because it wasn't the little shaking, it was the house is falling down, your life is changing, the world is ending. It was all of that kind of an earthquake. And after that, for a few years, I was able to feel when the next earthquakes were coming and a general location for them. Not how potent they could be, but a general feel of the people involved, like numbers of people, and what I would see, I could see in my mind, it just felt like everything was just shaking, and I could feel a kind of a collective fear associated with it. And according to how big that was, somehow in my visions, it translated to about how many people would be involved. And again, I could feel like a general idea of where, so there was an earthquake in Turkey that felt pretty much like I knew that one. And there was the one in Japan, I think in 2015, and I knew that one. And it was an incredible burden because everything you could think about, not only the feeling of the devastation and people in fear and people dying, but also what do you do with that? Who do you tell? Who would believe you? Hello, my name is Pepper. I live in Los Angeles and I just had this vision, and you need to evacuate all these people from, I'm not exactly sure where, but somewhere between here and there. You need to evacuate all these people, and thinking that, you're going to lock me up, right?
Right.
But the visions were devastating, and affected my nervous system quite a bit. And they came with physical side effects. There was headaches, and there was, I don't know, some kind of neuropathy, weird little things that my hands would, cramp up and get weird and do things, and I thought, I cannot live with this. I cannot live with either knowing this, and then what? Then you watch it on the news, and you want to say, I told you so. You want to say, why didn't I tell somebody? Maybe I should have, and all those kinds of things. And it didn't come from other earth changes, not like hurricanes or tornadoes. It was just earthquakes. And, I felt so uncomfortable and thinking I didn't know what to do. So I finally created what I called like a little ceremony. I made like a little altar, and I put some sacred objects on it, and I, lit incense. I did everything that you might think of in some kind of a ceremony. And really, I just was on my hands and knees, and I begged God or my guides or anyone that helped me to take this away from me, take this burden away from me. I can't do it. And the bigger fear as well, because I was kind of coming into my own with being able to see things that were useful and important that I could help other people with. And so then I felt like I was sort of bargaining with God, take this burden from me. But by the way, I would like more of this other thing. And so I thought, how do I do this? I was afraid that, in this way that fine, that this great powerful being was going to say, fine, we'll just take it all, and then I was going to be, nothing and have lost it all because I wasn't brave enough to embody these bigger things. But honestly, the burden of that was just too much. So it did. It just sort of diminished over time. And over time, it didn't. It's not like I woke up the next day and it was gone. But somehow, 6 or 8 or 12 months later, I woke up and I realized, oh, look, I saw it on TV. There was an earthquake, and I didn't know anything about it. And I was like really relieved and happy. So that was the biggest thing that's happened. Other than that, there's been a few things that I have seen that I really didn't want to see, and I knew in my heart that they were true, they were real, they were more specific to individual people.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of things where someone asks you something and you really don't want to give them the real answer. And,
Right. Yeah.
and so you have to examine in yourself, is the better thing to do to say nothing or to say something that's not true? Then you're not doing your job. And so I think I put things in a lighter perspective. And in this particular case that I'm talking about, they involved someone's child, a question that someone asked about someone's child. So I won't say more than that, but that was a really hard one as well. So with these incredible gifts, sometimes come these responsibilities that we could really just do without. And life is an incredible teacher that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
That was
had
a hard.
I
That was a
told
hard question. That was a hard question.
well, it brought back some old memories. I hadn't thought about that, in a long time, because it's been, a long time. So that would have been, in 96 or something, maybe that I started to think I can't do this or don't want to do it or something. So it's a while ago already.
Well, I see sometimes that some people ask that they have these sort of things and that they have a hard time managing it, like having visions of other people or the collective. But at the same time, I get a lot of people that come to me trying to get those and have them, because it might be fun or it might be special with them.
Yeah.
But I see there's some sort of balance that it's needed, or maybe it just has to do with whatever spirit is giving us, and see how we react to that. And it's just a test. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's why.
sometimes it does feel kind of like a tester or something like that too. And it's fair to say, or important to say as well, that sometimes the answers don't come just as much as sometimes you get answers that you don't want. Sometimes you really want and need and would like to give answers to someone and they won't come. I remember many years ago, a lovely lady who was, she had been adopted. She didn't know who her parents were. And she just wanted to know what her exact birthday and time was. She just wanted to know, when did I come into this world? Things that we kind of can take for granted a lot.
Yeah.
They gave her kind of like made up a birthday at the orphanage or wherever she grew up, or whoever adopted her. They picked a day and celebrated her birthday and everything. And she just wanted to know, on what day did I arrive on this earth? How old am I really? And, things that seem so obvious sometimes. And I so wanted to give her the answer that I thought, she wanted and needed. And I asked and I sat with it. And then I told her maybe later. And everything I did over the course of a few months on behalf of this person, and nothing ever came. And I don't know why, or what part of, my faultiness in that, or what part of it is important for her not to have that. I'm not sure, but that was one that I would consider sad and a real failure on my part. Maybe,
Well, at the same time, it's kind of strange the way we like to count the years. Or if we look at it from the spirit side, it's like, why do we count years anyway? It's like
Yeah.
there is no reason for that. I mean, we need the calendar to actually have meetings, and maybe like it's like a coordinate in space and time, so we can meet somewhere.
Yeah.
But then beyond that, it's like, why do we count years? I mean, it's fun to have a birthday party, or to just, or maybe we just have any celebration once a year in a
Yeah,
different day. But
yeah,
we sort of cling to that thing. Like if
yeah,
it's ours, it's my birthday, and no one else's. And then
yeah,
I remember that I always felt so special because I was born on December 30th. So I never knew anyone that was not even close to my date of birth.
uh-huh,
See, until I was like 18 or 17 or 18, something like that. And then you start meeting more people, and
yeah.
your circle widens. And then I kind of knew someone that was really kind of close. But then when Facebook came up, and you start seeing so many people that start adding you to Facebook, and then it's like, there's like 10 people having birthday the same day that I have a birthday. So some sort of like
It would be more fun
mental.
to, if you had an astrologer that said, okay, here are your whatever 5 great days this year or something like that, and think, oh, I'll have a celebration on those days, more than just whatever day. But wherever the position of the sun and the stars on the day that we arrived here is important. So that's, in some ways, I think that's what we're acknowledging. Maybe we're in
Yeah,
celebrating, acknowledging, another trip around the sun, as we say, right?
yeah.
Okay, here we go. Here's the.
This is the big one.
What's funny about this is that the question is really big. The answer itself is probably not as big, but the question, and I came across it as well on an article a couple of days ago, and later I'll tell you where. So I reformulated the question just a tiny bit. All I did is take out like one tiny bit of it to come up with this, because it was so, like I said, so big. So it's like 3 paragraphs long. That's I know, it's like really big. So I'm going to read it to you, okay?
Okay.
So, does an event have to be true in order to be accepted as true? Or does belief in the truth of an event already make it true, even if the thing that supposedly happened did not happen? And what if, in spite of your efforts to find out whether the event took place or not, you arrive at an impasse of uncertainty and cannot be sure if the story someone told you was true or a groundless rumor passed from one generation to the next? And even more to the point, if the story turns out to be so astounding and so powerful that your mouth drops open in wonder and you feel that it has changed or enhanced or deepened your understanding of the world, does it matter if the story is true or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I have an answer for that.
Yeah,
I think,
it's a question that's huge,
yeah, but what I believe is that we have something in us, and I think it's in the subconscious mind, that it doesn't matter for the subconscious mind if the story is true or not. What matters if that's the story that's being told right now for me in my life inside of me. Uh, in relationship to whatever is happening or going on in my life right now. So the story doesn't have to be true. It just needs to be a story that you have inside, that it's going around. It's the same thing with psychologists that sometimes say that some people have had some sort of trauma when they were a child. So even if it's not true, but the person thinks and believes inside that that story did happen, it has all the power inside to drive your life in that way, and for you to project whatever you have on the story onto others, so you start seeing life actually that way when you go around in life, when you make an action or meet someone or whatever, that's projecting itself out there. So and I believe this is why politicians and advertisement, they don't care if what they are talking about is true or not. They just want to go in there to plant a seed of a story that it's a good story, because we like good stories. We're like, that's why we like movies, reading books, and all that. We like stories. They are fun, and they have some sort of connection inside of us. So when we are feeling a good story, then it goes into us, and it has the potential to change lives because it is in there telling itself once, twice, three times, four times, as much as it likes. And if you still hold on to that, even if it's false, it's going to become real. Not because you're trying to uh, make things happen on the outside, but because you're projecting that. So if you have a story of an abusive father inside you, even if it's not true, you're gonna see people abusing you the whole time because you're gonna project that onto the others, and someone is gonna pick up that has some sort of similar story or the story on the other side, and he is the other character. He's gonna pick up onto that, and then you're gonna have some sort of retroactive uh, loop where it feeds itself from one to the other. So it's gonna make it more real here, and then that feeds on the inside story that now you think it's real because you're living it, and that whole a whole lot of things that can happen that way.
I'm going to play devil's advocate with you on
Okay.
the question, and then later I'll tell you where this came from, because it's kind of an interesting story too. So the question or the example I'll give you now, that's not related to the story, just so you know.
Okay.
But if I say, a few weeks ago, you and I had a conversation, and I told you that I had read a book that explored whether or not Jesus Christ was a mythology, a story that we had come to understand and believe, or whether this person existed historically in all the different things. So we had that. So in terms of this question, does it matter? Does it matter if that was true or not?
It doesn't. It doesn't. And the more you try to make it matter, the farther away you go from the story. And the more you make it matter at the same time. It's like it's like this whole things of the opposite coming together, because it's almost like a loop. If you're right here and then you try to go further away from it, the further you go away from it, from the loop, you're actually coming back to the same place. So the more you try to make the story not matter, but trying to make it tangible, physical, and have all these proofs that he existed, the more you're making it matter inside yourself and making it something really important for yourself inside. So it's like you're trying to get the proof so it doesn't matter to you, because you say, well, you see, there's no proof he existed. But the more you get into that place, into that path, the more you make it matter inside of yourself as a story. So you're going the other way around, like in a circle. The further away you get from the starting line, the closer you get to the starting line again. so it, for me, it just doesn't matter. If that's the story you're having and playing inside of you, that's the story you have to work with in your life the whole time.
Okay, I'm going to ask you part B of the question now.
Oh, okay, there's a part B.
I made up the part B. The first one I got, and then I'll tell you where I got this from. But the part B question I made up. So the part B is: in the absence of any information that could confirm or deny the story, would you believe? And this is a multiple choice. This is a multiple choice question. So in the absence of any information that could confirm or deny the story, would you believe A, the poet who wrote about it, B, a historian who accurately researched it, C, a scientist, or D, a descendant of the original storyteller?
The four of them. I mean, each one has its own story going in there. And depending on who comes to me, then I will have to believe that story from the one that's talking to me on that moment. If I had to choose which path of the story to take, I would probably take the poet one, because I believe that's the one that can be the strongest inside from my point of view. But this is where you just have to pick and choose your poison on what you put inside yourself, because no matter which one you take, there's going to be a reaction inside, and it's going to change you anyway because you're taking the story in. So if you have a scientific mind, maybe you're going to need to pick up the scientist. If you have a researcher mind, you have the historian, and then so on. But if I had to choose one, I would choose the poet because that's the kind of idea that I think that it merges better with what I have inside, and it's going to probably be more open-minded and gentle to let other other ideas, other thoughts of the stories, or the what I have in my mind merge with it at the same time. But the other three, they're gonna be like a hard knock inside, and they're gonna need to be established as whole truths because I research it, because I studied it, or because I am the descendant of. The other one is just like a tale that it's inside but can merge and move around my mind, and I can pick and choose from that what's actually good for me or more healthy or healthier than other parts. So that's the way to do it.
That's interesting. Interesting answer. So the question came from an article that I came across from a kind of like a folktale legend called "The Wolves of Stanislav," which
Mm-hmm.
is a part that was and it came from a writer, an award-winning writer who is Polish, and he traveled to Europe, to a certain part of Europe, in search of his ancestors, and he came across in a cafe someone who told him this story, and the story, just very short, basically has to do with the fact that this poor little town had been overrun by the Germans and the Russians and the exterminations and all the different things that had happened, so much that there was hardly anyone in this town, and that eventually, because there were so few people, um, almost empty, that these wolves that were out in the country, had moved in, and hundreds, thousands of wolves had moved into this town and were completely living in everything to do with the town, so that before they could actually, as the war was coming to an end, and before they could actually liberate that part of Europe, they had to send in a few special forces that they hired to go and round up and kill all the wolves, so that people could actually come back in, because there were so many of them. And so the person who at the cafe who told this journalist there, told him the story, said that it was his father who had been hired, was one of the people hired to take care of all the wolves. So this journalist thought that the story was so interesting and amazing that he had to write about it, and he had to know more about it, and what a good story that would make. And so then he said about going to the universities and the newspapers and the historians and everything else, and there is no account of this.
Oh.
So this man in the cafe had told him everything in such a detail and said this is from his father. And why would his father lie to him? Father would not do that, And so, but there is nothing, there is nothing in any account, no newspaper, no history, no anything that shows that this event actually takes place. So the legend, by those who choose to believe it, say that perhaps in some way that the wolves were actually the people who had invaded and taken over the city, in that, so that it could be liberated, maybe soldiers had to be hired and go in and take out the ones that had occupied this area. And perhaps a father did not want to tell that to a son, so used a story about wolves instead of soldiers and occupiers or something like that. However, this son absolutely is certain that his father told him the truth. and that
Right.
it was real, and they really were wolves. And though, therefore, as a journalist, he wrote this really interesting article, and so I just kind of adapted the question because I found it was really interesting too.
It is, and I believe that's the way our analytical mind messes with up right now in this moment of time, because there's just no need to go around like trying to get the facts straight from that guy that got the story told from his father. I mean, why don't we just let him live like happily with that instead of trying to get the facts correctly? You know, and I believe it's good for some things, but for other things, it's just no other use. We just mess up with our minds and just get worried about little things that don't don't
Well,
go any further.
there's that, borderline. How far do we want to cross that line? This person, he's a journalist, and he went there to find out about his true ancestry as
Mhm.
well. So, he's probably looking for those hard facts. But in the end, he concludes the article by saying that he just chooses to believe the story because he calls it a story within his own ancestry or something as well. But on the other hand, look, these days with everything that's happening, all the news reports, we've heard about, what is it, coyotes or whatever all over New York, and goats all over some other
Yeah.
place. What did it take? It took a few weeks for the animals to move back in to the cities. And so it opens up the potential for stories like this to be true, especially if a city is left vacant or something.
Right, yeah. On the curfew, just a very couple of few days in Santiago, they have a puma, a cougar going
Yeah,
around. And then
yeah.
they say there were two. They actually have just like pictures and recordings of one
Mhm.
from TV and from phones. But
Right.
they said there was another one somewhere else that nobody could record.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it could be true.
It could be true also. Yeah. So, I don't know exactly what the point of that is, but, the fact that we have legends and myths to help us live as well, like you say, our stories, and we need them. We need them perhaps more than we need other things, and we need to have these oral histories to tell each other as well.
Yeah, and stories like we were talking about, they don't need to be fact, but we need stories inside because we are stories inside ourselves the whole time. It's something we have inside, and that's how we communicate. That's how we build meaning into our lives. If we don't have those stories, then we cannot live meaning. Bring meaning to the life and build it. And at the same time, then we cannot see what our purpose is because we don't see our position or our role or character in the story. So we get lost about it. So
Yeah.
this is for me why I believe it's so important to have them inside and keep them inside as much as we can without having to go outside looking for every fact. And sometimes I resented this whole idea of that you need to know everything and details about your ancestors and what did they do, what was the secret of the family, because if you don't, you're not going to get healthy and you're not going to be sane again. And I say it's like I don't think you need them. You just need to have a story about your family, whether it is true or not. You just need to have them inside and understand they were there and that they had struggles, that they had a normal life too, and some of them maybe did some pretty amazing things to get where they are, so the family could go on, and we need to just know about that, but not all the facts. It's just the stories. Well, that's the way I see it. Maybe someone will come and correct me with that.
Probably. This is the information age after all. I'm sure there
Yeah,
are other people may feel, completely different. And that's great about it too,
yeah.
that we can all feel differently about it
They
too.
do the best that they can.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
You see, I have to remind myself of that constantly. Okay, so I have two more.
You want to ask them or you want to save them? What do you want to do? You want to ask?
I don't know.
I
Do
have,
you wanna cut this right here and then we?
we could if you want, so we don't go so long. I have two also. We could save them.
Okay, let's save them for another version.
All right. Because this was fun. I think we should do it
Yeah,
again.
it was fun.
All right. So I have two. I'll add to my two. I'll save them.
Okay, so let's save them for another time.
That's
And
because they were kind of like more lightweight ones. I wanted to end on a more lightweight, on a more.
oh,
All right, let's do one more, and it's got to be a lightweight one, so we can end on a light note. All right.
okay. Mine's weren't so light.
All right. So,
No. I think it's a light one. I have one that's a light one
all right.
for
Either
you.
that, or I could ask my one, and we could both answer it because it's kind of fun.
Okay, let's do that.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
All right. What superpower would you want that you think could most help the world? That could be
Ooh.
my last one, a playful one.
Uh, what superpower would I want to? That's a hard question. I've never thought, yeah, I've never thought too much about which superpower I would like, because well, I'm a Capricorn, so I don't think too much about having
No, of
superpower.
course, I'm asking the wrong sign.
We,
My
I
husband is a Capricorn. I'm going to ask him that question when I'm done.
let's see what he answers. But well, if I had to add something, I like Doctor Strange
Oh,
superpower, which is like messing with time
mhm.
and having this capacity to move time forward or backwards as they see fit.
Yeah.
So as he see fit to maybe correct some things.
Okay.
I sometimes feel like that, like superpower to just like, oh, I really messed up with something I said, because I'm really good at messing up with some things I say sometimes.
That's
Especially
really,
the people I love, I usually
yeah.
just say the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes like having the having the capacity to just put pause and rewind and then say something else will be really good.
It's so funny you said that because my answer was almost the same because I thought about everything as well. And I thought, okay, I would want the power to give everybody like one chance to go back and rewrite something in their,
Uh-huh.
one chance to remake a bad decision, one chance to erase a regret, one chance to choose whatever, a different profession to go in a different direction, and I think all in all, if everybody got one of those do-over kind of things, then the world would kind of like just kind of reset itself a little
Yeah.
bit, maybe. Like what if somebody gave Oppenheimer the chance to not have created the bomb or something like that? I mean, it could, we could think these are really little things, but it could also be something really big that would remake the whole world, really. So,
That's right.
so we had a really similar answer on that one. That's what I
That's
chose.
fun.
The redux redo problem.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a redo. Everybody gets a do-over.
I'm really good at screwing up with the words at the worst time sometimes. And it has happened to me many times, and I'm sure it happened with you sometimes.
Who,
Some
me? Oh, of course not.
It's just like I picked the wrong answer or the wrong word at the wrong time, and I remember it happened since I was a teenager. I remember this one time there was this girl I really liked, and I will always be afraid of going to talk to her. And one time she comes and talked to me, and I was such a jerk on the answer I gave.
Really?
Such a jerk. There was like 2 seconds after that, it was like, oh my god, I really screwed it up. Like I completely screwed it up. And I knew I screwed it up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's funny. I don't do that, but because I'm so always obsessed with the truth and the truth and who's got it and what's the truth and everything, I can sometimes be too truthful, actually, and so I think, oh, okay, I didn't need to be that truthful. They didn't need to know that. I didn't need to be so truthful. I could have kept that one to myself, no one needed to know that, or that kind of thing. But anyway, we are funny. We are funny human beings. We are that.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It was actually very, very funny, and I think it was entertaining. I did have a very good time.
I did too. This was actually more fun than I thought as well. So let's do it. Let's do it again.
Let's do it again.
All right.
All right, take care.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.